divine beings descending from the heavens, the first living entities to set foot on planet Earth. To some historians, they are the architects who designed humanity. To others, the divine forces that shaped our very faith. But who are the Anunnaki? Where did they come from? How did they emerge? And for what reason did they become the most significant and mysterious characters in human history? In this special episode of Secret History, we will attempt to unravel the secrets of the internet's most debated mystery. Our journey will take us to the deepest depths of civilization and to the very origins of religion and mythology. And ultimately, we will find the answers to the questions that haunt us together. To Secret History. The year one is 1968. Researcher and author Erich von Däniken, after years of research and travel, releases a book that would arguably start a new chapter in popular culture, Chariots of the Gods. In his book, Däniken presented independent civilizations across the globe, showing how they somehow shared a constantly connected symbolism, mythology, and even more interestingly, architectural and technological development. Following these claims, a new definition was created that would be on everyone's lips for years to come, the ancient astronaut theory. According to this theory, our planet was visited by extraterrestrial beings a very long time ago, and humanity built structures deemed impossible for that time, experiencing a sudden leap in civilization. To support this theory, Däniken pointed to formations like the Nazca lines in Peru, which are only clear when viewed from the sky, or the pyramids of Egypt, which were impossible to build considering the mathematical and geographical knowledge of that era. He showed us the incredible similarity of myths, like creation legends, and asked a question. What if the history we are told is completely wrong? And what if human civilization relies on a common past, much older than we know? From this theory, researcher Zecharia Sitchin emerged. In 1976, he wrote his book, The 12th Planet, sharing his series, The Earth Chronicles, with the world, and introducing a more specific definition into our lives, the Anunnaki. Now, normally, in videos you encounter on the internet or on TV programs, you see conspiracy theorists presenting Zecharia Sitchin's claims as if they were completely proven facts. It has reached a point where, whenever the subject comes up, everyone speaks as if their own parents came from the Anunnaki. They say things like, they came from Nibiru following this route, then Alalu was exiled to Mars. That face on Mars is his face. They tell the story as if they were there personally. Now, believing in the Anunnaki is one thing, talking about them like they are your cousins is another. In this video, I will not quote from Zecharia Sitchin's books. Personally, I will try to present the big picture to you by cross-referencing historical texts, epics, and myths from other ancient cultures, connecting those gaps with tangible facts. Yes, I will use some information Sitchin gave us, but we will investigate the subject with an analysis system where tangible connections are at the forefront. Our journey begins, of course, in the lands where this story was born, the cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia. Around 4,500 BC, according to the history we are told, the Sumerian civilization suddenly appears in all its glory. The first civilization where writing, astronomy, advanced mathematics, and many other sciences began to be used. For example, the first human rights laws, the first hospital and doctor system, the first library, and the concept of the historian. They all entered our lives with the Sumerians. Now, one cannot help but ask, how did these men appear on the stage of history, so developed, all of a sudden? And more importantly, how did these developments begin to be used suddenly, as if starting a book from the middle? Here, some historians began to ask this question. Did humanity discover some things long before the Sumerians? And were the Sumerians merely an extension of them? This question is what caused the curiosity that led you to watch this video right now. When we examine ancient myths like the Atrahasis, Enuma Elish, and the Epic of Gilgamesh, we encounter a superior ruling group of beings distinct from humans, the Anunnaki. The word literally means the princely seed from heaven and earth. In any historical remnant or epic we have, it is not written exactly when or why these beings came to Earth. So, Zecharia Sitchin's claim that they came 400,000 years ago to mine gold because their atmosphere was weakening is actually an unsupported claim. Yes, there are correct elements in it, but we cannot say the whole story is exactly like that. In the Enuma Elish epic, although the timeline is not clear, we find this interesting information. The epic speaks of a war of the gods that happened before the formation of the earth. It relates that the earth was formed after these great clashes, and the Anunnaki, created after these events, were tasked with establishing the order of the world. Although their emergence is a mystery, we have reached some information about what they did after coming to Earth. And perhaps the most important of these is that they officially started our history, that is, the creation of mankind. In the late 19th century, archaeologists like Sir Henry Layard and Hormuz Rassam were tracing the ancient Sumerian cities despite limited resources. And one day, deep beneath the soil, in the regions where the cities of Nippur and Ur were located, a large archaeological site was discovered. Dozens of statues, precious accessories, and thousands of tablets that would break all molds regarding human history. It took years for experts to examine and translate these tablets, but finally, when the translations of the text named Enki and Ninmah were completed, information that left everyone in astonishment woke up from its thousands of years of sleep and showed itself to us, the creation of man. If you listen to the representatives of today's Abrahamic religions, you constantly hear that human beings are the most beautiful, most developed, and most sacred of creations, and that all life on earth is given to our service. I specifically said representatives of religions, because actually, except for Judaism, there is not much information in Abrahamic religions that humans are such super sacred beings. In the Quran, it only writes that humans were sent to this world as a caliph, and in 1 or 2 verses, that they are an honorable being. That is all. Despite this, it is repeated countless times that man's only duty is to obey and to serve. So remember, phrases like, man is supreme, all souls are at his command, are nothing more than words thrown out by the human ego. If you watch the world news, you can see for yourself how wrong this claim is. As a matter of fact, in the Enki and Ninmah tablets, which are thousands of years older than the books of Abrahamic religions, the situation is exactly the same. It is even stated in a much more demoralizing way. Since similar information exists in the Atrahasis epic, I will now tell you the combined version of the information in these epics. When the Anunnaki first came to the planet, there was a race 1 rank below the Anunnaki in the divine hierarchy, serving to meet their basic needs, the Agigi. This subgroup carried out services such as the construction of Anunnaki temples, infrastructure works like opening canals, in the feeding of the Anunnaki. As I said in my previous videos, although ancient civilizations called the Anunnaki gods or divine beings, they also gave information that they were beings always in need of shelter and food. Do not forget this. The group of beings we are talking about consists of flesh, bone, and living things. So why were they called gods? You will get the answer to this question shortly. This intense work tempo became too heavy for the Agigi, and they rebelled against the Anunnaki. We can call it the first strike in world history. For the solution to this problem, Enki, the god of waters, wisdom, and creativity, began work, and goddess Ninmah assisted him in this project. Throughout their experiments, they tried to create a living thing capable of serving them. At first, some organs and limbs did not work as desired, and the experiments failed. But ultimately, according to the meaning in the epic, by using clay, which symbolizes something used from the earth, Sitchin called this apes, and a balanced mixture of the blood of the gods and some other substances, the first human was created exactly as desired, in the image of the gods. The male named Adapa. In the Sumerian creation epic, it says, "O my mother, the creature whose name you will give has come to be. Place the image of the gods upon him. Mix the mud of the abyssal water. Form his arms and legs. O mother, speak the destiny of the newborn. Behold, he is a human." Later, these creation stages would be repeated, and humans would be allowed to reproduce with females of their own kind, increasing the population. Although the name of the first male created is known in Sumerian texts, the name of the female is not specified. Enki loved Adapa, the first human he created, very much and adopted him like his own son. As a result of this, he began to transfer everything from his own knowledge to him: agriculture, science, laws, the names of things around him. This is an important point, because you have heard this story somewhere else. The concept of the creation of Adam in holy books, and the teaching of names, that is, knowledge. Humans who mastered basic knowledge began to serve by paying homage to them under the rule of the gods. They built ziggurats, which were their homes. Later, this concept would turn into concepts called the house of God, like churches, temples, and mosques. Red meat, fruit, beautiful vegetables, beer, and wine were given to the gods to ensure they were fed. Again, this event would cause the birth of the concept of sacrifice in the future and its place in holy books. Briefly, all the drudgery work once done by the Igigi was now given to the lower species, the human worker slaves. This includes working in mines. The mining issue is an extremely important detail, because whether in the Enuma Elish tablets, the myths of Ziusudra and Enki, or the Sumerian king list, we find information about the Anunnaki's fondness for gold and how this metal was to be extracted. Although Zecharia Sitchin claimed that the Anunnaki used this metal to repair the atmosphere of their own planet, as I said before, this is a hypothetical claim and has not been proven. But the reality is, the Anunnaki really attached great importance to this gold metal. In fact, because of this, for thousands of years in human civilizations, gold has always been accepted as a divine metal, a gift worthy of gods, and a symbol of divine power. For example, Egyptian pharaohs would cover themselves with gold water and dust, appearing before the public to show they were divine rulers. And this custom is a tradition left from the gods in Egyptian mythology, because in ancient Egyptian belief, gold was known as a metal directly belonging to the divine gods and was respected. It was even believed that this metal hid the secret of the gods, and that only they could perform their divine works using this secret. Gold is still one of the most frequently used and important materials in technology today. An interesting coincidence, isn't it? In Greek myths, gods lived in palaces made of gold, and most of their items were gold. In Hindu legends, gold is expressed directly as the metal of the gods, and temples were decorated with gold plating. We do not yet know clearly why the Anunnaki attached so much importance to this metal, but there is this fact: great importance was truly attributed to this metal. It is useful to intervene here, because I want to remind you of this once again. The Anunnaki we are talking about are beings with human behavior patterns, human bodies, and needs, rather than mythological heroes. Yes, Sumer and many subsequent civilizations worship them as gods, divine beings, but actually, these are lives of flesh and blood. We see clearly from the detailed descriptions in the epics that they are like this. They fall in love. They have behaviors like jealousy, hatred, love. They eat and drink. There are ugly ones. There are beautiful ones. They are just much more developed than humans and physically larger. Never forget this, and keep this information in mind throughout the video. Now, Some of you might say, why did they worship flesh and blood beings standing in front of them as gods? A logical question. Actually, the answer is extremely simple. The more ignorant a person is, the more divine meanings they attribute to events they cannot explain. Let me give you a simple example of this. During World War II, a very interesting event occurred. To stop the Japanese advance in the northeast of Papua New Guinea, an American air base was built, and heavy air cargo supplies began to the region. In the Asmat region near the base, there were tribes that had never had any contact with the modern world before. While supply boxes were dropped by parachute, sometimes these provisions fell into the area where the tribes were. American soldiers did not touch them to avoid problems. Years after the war ended, researchers who went to the region to shoot a war documentary encountered an extremely interesting scene. The local people in the region had made a replica of an American cargo plane out of bamboo trees and had started worshiping it. According to them, these god planes flying in the skies sent them food and provisions from the divine floor. When these aids stopped after a while, the tribe thought the god planes were angry with them, so they built a bamboo statue and began to offer their respects, so that the gods would send them provision boxes from the air again. You understand, don't you? The emergence of a religion is sometimes that simple. We attribute divine qualities to something we do not understand. We invent worship suitable for it. We produce holidays. We hang those who question it, and then the end of the rope gets lost. Look, these men worshipped even a plane they just saw in the air. Imagine being the first created humans, knowing nothing. In front of you, there are extremely developed and large beings who came from space. Their powers are enough for everything compared to you. So, what did you expect to happen as a result of this? Of course, humans began to worship them. Epics tell us that humans multiplied over time. Their voices began to rise, and they became reluctant to serve the gods. Symbolically, this can be interpreted as humans beginning to develop and starting to see themselves as divine beings as well. Because subsequently, Enlil would get extremely angry at this development and disrespect, and would order that they not be warned about the approaching flood. In this way, a decision is taken for all humans to die, and then to create a more obedient human species from scratch. This is an interesting point, because the Anunnaki somehow detected that the flood was coming, and they say, "We will remake them more obediently later." Do not forget this. You will understand its importance in a moment. However, an Enki is extremely attached to humans and does not want them to perish. For this reason, he appears in a dream to Zeusudra, one of the humans he loves, and tells him to build a ship against the approaching disaster and to protect his family and specified animals with this ship. Zeusudra, doing Enki's wish, survives the coming flood of fear, and at the end of the flood, his ship sits on a mountain. Later, the second life period of gods and humans begins. This story I told is taken from the Zeusudra epic, which is a part of Atrahasis. In 1872, as a result of work done in the Nineveh excavation area, the same story appears before us again. Only the names have changed. Enki comes to the side of Utnapishtim's tent to inform him of the approaching disaster, and gives detailed information about how to build a ship. Upon this, Utnapishtim builds the ship in 7 days, hides his family, relatives, artists, and various animals in the ship. After the flood lasting 6 days and 6 nights, Utnapishtim, whose ship sits on the mountain, starts releasing birds from his ship after waiting for a while. And finally, when the last raven he released did not return, they understood that the flood was over and went ashore. Meat is cooked in 7 cauldrons as a sacrifice to the gods. Seeing them, Enlil goes mad with rage, saying, "How did these survive?" But Enki intervenes, saying, "Punish them for their sins, but do not be this harsh again," calming him down, and they eat together. As I just said, these events point to the beginning of the second period of humans and gods. This period, lasting for ages, ends with another great event as we understand from cross myths. and it leads to the gods leaving the earth, and the Sumerian civilization appearing on the stage of history in 4500 BC, in the sense we know. Now, here are the minds of experts who are 1,000 times more dominant on the subject than me, are a bit confused, because there is a flood period, and there is a period where gods fought with each other. With my own research, I think the flood came first, and then the second period ended with the destruction known as the Tower of Babel incident. This is not an event we have clearly placed in chronology yet, because there are tens of thousands of tablets not yet found, and this age of history remains a bit in the dark. I don't think we will be able to learn these truths anytime soon, including some archaeological sites where these tablets are located. Many archaeological sites were bombed and destroyed. When Iraq fell, almost all tablets kept in the National Museum were smuggled to the USA by military operation. These are not conspiracy theories or anything. There are videos of all of them. So, truths are seriously being hidden and will continue to be hidden. In general terms, the basic and simplest story of the Anunnaki is like this: celestial beings coming from outside the world, creating the human species to serve them. So, what evidence do we have to strengthen our hand about this belief? After the information I just mentioned, this question might have come to your mind. The events described in the Quran, Torah, and Bible appear exactly the same in these myths from thousands of years ago. Are these guys the origin of religions? Here begins the second main part of the video, where we will find the answer to all these questions. When we look for traces of the Anunnaki, similar myths and similar interactions appear in all four corners of the world, just as described in Sumer. For example, in the Anunnaki hierarchy, three basic god figures appear before us: Anu, the leader of the entire council; Enlil, and Enki. In total, the Anunnaki Council consists of 12 gods and goddesses. Similarly, when we look at Egyptian mythology, the main god Amun and the most important characters after him, Osiris and Set, appear. In ancient Greece, the trinity of Kronos, Zeus, and Poseidon, and the information of 12 main gods and goddesses living in Olympus is almost exactly the same as the Sumerian belief. This concept of the Council of 12 gods and goddesses will later appear before us in Christianity as the 12 apostles of Jesus. In Hinduism, this trinity appears as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, the highest creators. In the American continent, this triple god group is the main creator, Hunab-Ku, and Itzamna and Kukulkan, that is Quetzalcoatl, below him. Just as this trinity constantly repeats itself, the myths and information related to them also repeat themselves exactly. For example, the flood event is written to happen for the same reason in all civilizations in the world, just as the Sumerians mentioned: the corruption of humans, stopping paying homage to gods, and their development. Even the way events happen: surviving humans escaping with a ship, then the god or gods forgiving humans and the new age beginning. Wherever you go in the world, it is told in exactly the same way. The god figure coming from the skies teaching civilization to humans, and this god saying he will return one day to save humanity from the coming destruction and leaving the world. This story is always the same in all cultures. In fact, this God who will return belief transformed into the Messiah belief in Abrahamic religions over time, and later, due to hadiths devised from Israelite sources, into the Savior Mahdi belief. Remember the tribe worshiping the plane? Humans are the same everywhere. They decorate something whose origin is extremely simple, glorify it, and finally forget what the truth is because of their own lie. This example is the best summary of the Mahdi belief today. Because according to the Quran, if you expect salvation or help from a being other than God, you fall into shirk, polytheism, and exit the religion. Do not forget this either. I do not want to go into the details of this subject and extend the video unnecessarily, because I have actually made videos about almost all of them before. Just remember this here. The distance between these civilizations is thousands of kilometers, and we can say they had not the slightest communication with each other. But somehow, their descriptions of these beings are exactly the same. Now, I am sure most of you are wondering how the Anunnaki shaped today's culture and religions. So without making you wonder any longer, let's enter the subject. A little while ago, I told you the flood story in Sumerian myths and epics. Now let's see how this story is handled in Abrahamic religions. If we go in order, in the Book of Enoch, the flood is described to us like this. Humans who did business with fallen angels and learned science and civilization from them made the Creator very angry, because in the eyes of the Creator, the only purpose of man is just to obey, not to be divine like them. For this reason, the Creator sends a flood to destroy both the giants, that is the Nephilim, born as a result of the relationship between fallen angels and humans, and those humans. In the Torah, the event is described as follows: celestial divine beings like human women. In the Torah, these beings are called Elohim. Elohim is the plural of the word Eloha, and it really means gods, powerful ones, shining ones. So it tells us of a community. Yahweh is the main god above them. These Elohim have relationships with human daughters, and Nephilim, which the Torah calls giants, are born. After a while, realizing this, the Lord God regrets creating humans and sends a flood for all of them to perish. In the meantime, he warns Noah, whose lineage he loves, and tells him to build a ship and hide his family and animals in it. 7 days later, when Noah finishes the ship, the flood comes, swallows everything, and lasts for 40 days. Finally, Noah's ship sits on a mountain. Noah releases birds, and when they do not return, understanding that the flood is over, gets off his ship and cooks meat to give a sacrifice to God. Look now, this is interesting. Smelling the meat, God becomes pleased and says, "I will not curse the ground any more for man's sake, for the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I again smite any more everything living, as I have done." Isn't it almost exactly the same as the story in Sumerian texts? Only there, Enlil and Enki were having this conversation between themselves. Here the two are combined under a single god figure. Thus, the Torah prevented the polytheistic belief in its own way. In the Quran, if we summarize the story in 7 surahs and about 20 verses, it goes like this. Allah sends Noah as a messenger to a tribe, and after hundreds of years, because his tribe became corrupt and stopped obeying, he tells Noah that he will destroy them with a flood and orders him to build a ship. Actually, the verse mentioned here is exactly like this. Build the ship under our eyes and by our inspiration. So there is a plural expression and a physical description like under our surveillance. After the determined people and animals enter the ship, waters large enough to swallow even mountains sweep everything away, and humanity starts again. Although the Quran removed almost all symbolic details in the books before it and handled the event in an extremely simple way, the main motif is exactly the same as the Sumerians. God getting angry at humans, deciding to destroy them, and warning Noah. Of course, the influence and similarity of the Anunnaki on religions and beliefs does not end only with the flood myth. Let's multiply the examples a bit more. When we handle the concept of creation, Sumerian legends give us this information. According to them, in the beginning, there was a vast water named Namu in the universe. Namu, who is also a conscious being, she brought out a huge mountain from this water. Her son Enlil split the mountain in two, and the top of the mountain became the sky, while the bottom became the earth. The god of the skies and the goddess of the earth equipped this piece with plants, trees, waters. Afterwards, animals are created, and finally, gods, that is Anunnaki, who will manage them all, are created. This narration and symbolism appears in the Genesis section of the Torah like this. "And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And God called the firmament heaven. In the continuation of the surah, just like in Sumerian texts, it is written that the earth is filled with plants and animals. In the Quran, in Surah Al-Anbiya 30, it is told, "Do not those who disbelieve see that the heavens and the earth were a closed-up mass? Then we opened them out, and we made from water every living thing." Although the Quran generally handles these issues quite superficially, the symbolism and word choices used are the same as both the Torah and Sumerian texts. Let's come to the creation of man. A little while ago, we learned the details about the creation of man in Sumerian myths. In summary, we are a species created as servants to do the work of the Anunnaki, beings coming from the sky. In this, the use of the clay concept, the concept of God's blood essence in our structure, is a detail repeating in many ancient cultures worldwide. Now let's look at the narration of this event in Abrahamic religions. "Indeed, your Lord is God, who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and then established himself above the throne." Pay attention to the word throne here. Throne means the seat where kings sit. It means the throne room. Let's go into a little more detail. He is the one who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and his throne was upon the water. In the Torah, similarly, it is told that creation lasted 6 days, and on the 7th day, God retreated to rest. If you notice, in the Quran, in the Torah, they are persistently stuck on this 6-day creation concept. Well, what is the relevance? If there are those of you wondering, why doesn't it happen when God says be? The answer to this question is in Sumerian texts. According to current data, when we examine various Sumerian creation tablets, 6 basic creation steps, phases, appear before us. First, the formation of order from primitive chaos. That is, the emergence of matter from those universal waters I mentioned. Second, the creation of gods. 3, the separation of sky and earth. 4, the shaping of the earth. 5, the creation of life. 6, the creation of humans. This is the origin of the 6-day creation concept in Abrahamic religions. In fact, if you read the creation section in the Torah, you will see that even the substances are almost exactly the same. Let's continue with the details of man's creation. We return to the concept of clay and the information that man was created in the image of the Anunnaki. We created man from an extract of clay, and the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over all the earth." So God created man in his own image. Male and female created he them. And when thy Lord said unto the angels, "Lo, I am about to create a mortal out of mire, and when I have fashioned him and breathed into him of my spirit, then fall down before him prostrate," God said, "O Iblis, what preventeth thee from prostrating thyself unto that which I have created with both my hands? Art thou too proud, or art thou of the high exalted?" How is it? A bit surprising, isn't it? We already know the Sumerians. According to them, these beings are flesh and blood living things. But in both the Torah and the Quran, they not only repeat the information in Sumerian texts almost exactly, on top of that, they portray God as a physical living thing. In both the Torah and the Quran, the Creator God is described as if he harbors multiple personality traits within himself. Sometimes he is forgiving, compassionate, but mostly he is portrayed as a punisher and a being to be feared. Sometimes referring to free will and judgment after death. Sometimes without waiting for the other side, constantly intervening in humans or destroying them. Especially in the Torah, God is shown as a being with an extremely human mood and emotions. Here, Defenders of the ancient astronaut theory claim that the biggest reason for the God figure in today's religions being contradictory within itself and having tendencies similar to human emotions and behaviors is the effort of these modern beliefs to combine the contradictory features of Enki and Enlil characters under a single roof. You can notice this nuance yourself by reading the Quran, the Torah, and the Bible, not with an illogical approach. Frankly, I don't think a being capable of creating all existence would hold a tribe the size of today's town in a meteor shower because they had homosexual relationships or adultery increased. If it were so, not a speck would have remained of the world by now. The similarity of some basic creator concepts in Abrahamic religion books with the Anunnaki is not limited only to texts like just now. When we look at symbolic concepts in worship, we see that religions were influenced by the Sumerians. For example, the sacrifice ritual I mentioned a little while ago. Actually, while the sacrifice event was an action done to feed the gods and keep their hearts pleasant, after the gods physically left the planet, it turned into a symbolic ritual and evolved into an effort made to reach the gods, who could no longer be communicated with directly as before throughout the ages. In fact, some societies, in times of disaster, even offered the most precious human life as a sacrifice with the hope that the gods would answer. We find the origins of the concepts of places of worship, and sin and merit once again in Sumerian belief. People used to make wishes and pray to the Anunnaki in the giant ziggurats where they lived. For these prayers to be accepted, as a vow, they would offer whatever the ruling god of that city loved to them. The exact equivalent of the concept of sin and merit passes in Sumerians like this. If humans did not meet the needs of the gods properly, to please them, or did not behave in a way worthy of them, this would anger the gods, and when they returned, they would punish humans very seriously. For example, Enlil once ordered the destruction of the city of Ur from top to bottom, just because he was angry at the people. We frequently see similar concepts of destruction in the Quran and the Torah. Cities and tribes that do not listen to God's word are destroyed by an interesting sound coming from the sky. When we go down to the etymological origins of words, things get a little more interesting. Let's take the names of the three greatest gods of the Sumerians: Anu, Enlil, and Enki. The name of the head creator Anu evolved into Anum in the Akkadian language. In the Egyptian language, it started to be used as Amun or Amun, and at the end of worship, it was finished by elongating it as Amun. According to some etymologists, this action became indoctrinated into their symbolism because they lived in Egypt for years. They claim it started to be used as Amen in Judaism and subsequently in Christianity, and finally as Amen in Islam. But do not forget, this is not a subject historians and linguists are 100% sure about. But it is a strong theory, because if such a similar word is used for worship in exactly the same way for years, one needs to think a bit. The last item of the similarity between Anunnaki and religious systems is the subject of the human obliged to obey, which Enlil once emphasized. In Atrahasis, the Era epic, Enki and Ninmah tablets, and countless other sources, the same phenomenon constantly repeats itself. Obey the gods so that you are not punished. These punishments could be individual, or they could be multiplied into examples like Enlil destroying the city of Ur I just gave, or completely destroying humans with the flood. This phenomenon shows itself as ma'at in Egyptian belief. This concept means humans obeying the gods by not going out of their boundaries properly. And in this way, you are rewarded with finding peace in the other world. Otherwise, Ikron, your soul is sentenced to eternal torments with the worst sides of Duat, which is the other world. In Akkadians, it is believed that people who do not serve God, Marduk, Enki, and Enlil properly, who do not respect them, will be thrown into the other world full of difficulties and pains called Aralu, while those successful in obedience and propriety will be sent to Dilmun, where fertile lands, abundance, and peace dominate. So, slowly, heaven and hell concepts are taking shape. You already know the situation in Abrahamic religions. This obedience concept appears before us in an extremely harsh way. And in the Quran, it is told repeatedly how tribes that did not obey, that did not follow God's rules, were destroyed. The word Islam means to obey, to submit, while Muslim means the person who obeys, who submits. In the Quran, the emphasis that the religion in the sight of God is Islam is made to humans for this reason. The message, your religion, that is, your behavior pattern as a word equivalent, is to bow down, to submit, is given clearly to humans. Those who do not comply with this will be destroyed in this world and will be subjected to various tortures in hell in the afterlife. Let me give a few examples from Sumerian texts regarding this situation of disobedient tribes. In various ancient texts, such as the Hymn to Ishkur, royal inscriptions of Meskelamdug, and King Shulgi's instructions, it is told that Enlil personally appointed rulers and kings who worshipped him unconditionally and adopted his power during the period of human kings, while giving them various gifts and power in return for obeying his orders. It is told that when they did not follow his rules, those kings and their cities were destroyed by Enlil. We have reached the final leg of our long journey, and here, we will investigate a bit how the management understanding shaped by the Anunnaki shaped our culture and lifestyle today. Those who say, thousands of years have passed, would Anunnaki remain? Take a deep breath. I mentioned that the concept of the ruling king lineage was born in the land of Sumer with the Anunnaki. In fact, Sumer implies the land of high kings, the land of shining kings. Although the texts are not clear, they give us this interesting information. The period of humans playing a role in administration, but at a level below them, under the absolute rule of the Anunnaki. Now, information about the details of this period is seriously very limited, and we do not know exactly how far back it goes in history. Or do we know now? Between the years 1908 and 1934, a team of archaeologists, including famous Sumerologist Herman Hilprecht, Stephen Langdon, and Leonard William King, found tablets in the excavations of Nippur and Nineveh cities that were extraordinary and destroyed our concept of human history in the sense we know. The famous Sumerian king list. The list tells us in detail which king ruled for how many years in Sumerian city-states. For those saying, well, what is so extraordinary about this? I want to say this. The list dates back to almost 250,000 BC. There is a familiar name in the first row of this extraordinary king list. Alulim, that is Adapa, that is Adam, ruling the holy city of Eridu. That is the first city established by the Anunnaki on earth. The text on the tablet reads, after the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu. In Eridu, Alalim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. 28,800 years. You realize why this is important information, don't you? Did the list end? Of course not. The tablet gives us in detail which city the 10 kings who lived before the flood ruled for how many thousands of years. And the tablet also tells that these lineages disappeared with the flood. After the flood, between the 40th and 256th lines of the tablet, it mentions that 23 kings ruled for a total of 24,510 years. Then, gradually, you see that both the lifespans and ruling periods of these kings decreased. And finally, events connect to our day. Here, the confusion is the possibility that the flood phenomenon might be much, much older than we thought, or that humanity might have experienced multiple floods in these passing 250,000 years throughout the ages. This is a subject I am still researching. When I clarify it, or at least gather the crumbs a bit, I will definitely share its video with you. I leave the links of these sources in the description. Definitely examine them. Look, these are periods of thousands of years where humans or semi-humans were in administration. We don't even know how much further back the period before that goes. Zecharia Sitchin said this dates back to 400,000 BC. After his death, in some scientific studies done, claims began to be thrown out that Homo sapiens appeared in this time interval. Coincidence? Could be, but I am not someone who believes in coincidences much. Briefly, human history, which we don't even know that we don't know, is completely different and goes far beyond what is told to us in books. Although we find information proving this every passing day, detailed research of these and sharing them with society, unfortunately, does not happen very transparently, as you know. This management concept of tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of years, causes the birth of this phenomenon in known history, the divine right to rule. Now, since I will handle the post-Anunnaki period here, the people I will mention will be normal humans. For example, as I said at the beginning of the video, pharaohs would cover themselves with gold dust and launch to their people that they came from a divine lineage and therefore had rights in administration. Pay attention to this line. People claiming to come from a divine lineage and therefore seeing themselves superior to normal humans, acting as if they are obliged to rule them. This concept is the biggest reason for the birth of monarchy. In fact, the beliefs of these men that they came from this Anunnaki lineage or divine lineage became stereotyped in such a deviant way that incest relationship was not forbidden in monarchy, just to preserve the purity of that lineage. A good example of this is European kingdoms. As far as is shared with the public, since the year 1700, almost all European monarchy, look, from Spain to England, from Denmark to Russia, almost all of them are relatives of each other, and marriages always take place between these relatives. For example, the British Queen Victoria is a relative of the Russian Tsar Nicholas II. Events are so intertwined. As I said, this is as much as we know. Apart from this, similarly, marriages were also made between the powerful families of those times. One of the biggest reasons for this is the attempt to protect that holy lineage. In symbolism, this divine lineage is called the blue blood group, and they appear superior to humans, symbolized by red blood. The point where blue and red mix implies the hybrid of gods and humans, the combination. That is, the Nephilim lineage mentioned in the Torah in the book of Enoch. I mentioned before, from those whose flag is this color, to the use of this color even in police lights as a symbol of authority, like super powerful characters in comic books, usually wearing uniforms of this color, in hundreds of symbolic concepts where we would say, what is the relevance? Actually, this subconscious coding is being done. Obey this lineage. They are strong, powerful. If you oppose their system, you pay the price. The world is really a strange planet, isn't it? Although we have almost not the slightest information about our history, our belief, our origin. We think we know everything. Whereas, look, what results come out even from a simple research I did in my own way. I will leave all sources and books in the description part as much as I can. Please read, research, establish cross-links yourself too. After all, this is a big secret, a mystery. It is impossible for one person to solve this. Maybe one of you will solve the connection of the subject with religions perfectly. Some of you, its connection with culture. But ultimately, as we share and combine this information, we can solve the puzzle together. My purpose in giving the information and theories I mentioned just now in this video is not the message, look, everything you believe is a lie. As I always say, faith is an important concept for me. I am only sharing with you the truths, or possible truths, lying behind the things imposed on us. I am presenting theories so that I can look at events from outside the molds too. Now, there is no need to get into unnecessary concept confusions like, I was saying God, what will I say now? What will happen to my faith? If you believe in a creator above everything, continue to believe. Whether you called him God, Allah, Lord, what is important is your intention. Look, Buddhists haven't even given a name to this being because they believe that man cannot comprehend him. Look at the event a bit more abstractly. For years, it was dictated to us that the Creator constantly intervenes in everything. Friends, why should the Creator interfere with the order He created? Did He give us free will, the right to choose for nothing? If He is going to be a type who interferes with every step you take, He already stops being a creator and turns into a manager, which drags you to the Anunnaki belief just now. If you notice anyway, there hasn't been anyone intervening for thousands of years. If there were, the world wouldn't be in this state, would it? Humans still say the same words when the cruel crushes the oppressed, and they just wait. Even the bones of most of those waiting turned to dust and went. Today, you are watching from the front row in various parts of the world how the cruel cuts the innocent, how he crushes them. But no one comes. Why not? Because you are in an order created with a concept like free will. God gave brains, use them, develop yourselves, unite, choose moral leaders, raise generations who look after the future of their country, develop in science, in technology. See then, can they crush you? See then, what kind of place does the world turn into? But no, we just sit and wait for the arrival of winged beings from the skies, and for thousands of years. If you are a believer, seek the true Creator beyond all these symbolic concepts. The subject we mentioned just now was the handling of a theory. This is not a concept clearly proven yet. Yeah, these applications are indisputable, but ultimately it is still being researched. For example, let's say it turned out that the Anunnaki created humans. Let's say, as in the examples I just gave, the origin of all religions, all books, turned out to be these guys. Why should this affect your faith? They must have a creator too, right? This universe, everything must have a source, right? We talked about this scientifically in the double slit experiment video too. According to this theory, the Anunnaki just designed the human body. We do this even today. What importance does this have? You focus on the soul, focus on the source, seek the truth beyond all these concrete concepts. True faith is formed in this way and enters inside you. Otherwise, if you become a prisoner of a faith full of symbolic movements, concrete concepts, in the slightest tremor, they destroy your entire faith and you fall into a void. So, continue your search for truth on your own path. After all, they said, he who seeks, finds. I hope the video has been useful for those who want to deepen their research on the subject. As I said, many more examples regarding the examples I gave are written in the books in the description part. I recommend you read them. I will continue to share videos related to the subheadings of the subject with you constantly. Stay tuned. Please write in the comments section which headings related to the subject you want to see in more detail, and I will add them to my to-do list. Please do not forget to share if you like the video and help Secret History grow by subscribing to the channel. Until seeing you in the next video, take care of yourselves.